Batman Earth 1 by Geoff gives us a look at a younger Batman just starting his career in this different reality. This is volumes 1 and 2. Enjoy.
Along the Gotham rooftops, a man runs, trying to get away from a dark shadow that's chasing him. Batman stands and grabs his grappling hook and he takes aim and then he fires. But instead of launching the anchor, the spool breaks and entangles, making the tool useless. The man continues to try and escape, jumping off another roof, and Bruce quickly chases after him. Except when Bruce leaps, he falls short and he tumbles all the way to the ground. He lays on a pile of garbage and he quietly says, "Ow," and he hears another call for help. He gets up to see a pair of robbers fleeing from a restaurant, but rather than being helpful, he turns and he walks away. When Bruce turns the corner to an alleyway, a drifter looks up at him and tells them, "Please, don't hurt me. I was just trying to keep warm." He looks at the woman and then he hands her some money and then he drives off without saying a word. What led Bruce to becoming the Caped Crusader, failing horribly on his first night out? Long ago at the Wayne mansion, Alfred Pennyworth visited Thomas Wayne during his campaign at becoming the mayor of Gotham. As Alfred knocks on the wooden doors, a butler opens up and says that they've been expecting him. And seconds later, Thomas himself runs up telling him that he can't believe he's actually here. Thomas hands Alfred's bags to the butler, and Alfred looks around telling him that it looks like the medical tech business is really paying for itself, huh? Thomas laughs, telling him actually it was Martha's great-grandfather who built this place. The two walk into the main room while everyone celebrates, and Alfred says that he's read up on the opposing candidate. He's a real questionable character, but it looks like he doesn't have a chance. Thomas tells him the party is a little premature. The election isn't for a few more days, and that's when Martha comes in telling them that they just need to enjoy the moment while they can. Thomas then tells Alfred that he would like to introduce his campaign manager and his wife. Alfred stops himself, telling him that he's an advocate for the rights of the mentally ill. She's just as famous as Thomas Wayne. Martha shakes Alfred's hand, saying that after all of these years, she gets to meet the man who saved her husband's life. And Alfred says, well, he was also the one who helped him walk again. Martha then says that he needs to meet their son, Bruce, and she shouts across the room for her boy to come over. As Martha goes off looking, Alfred tells Thomas that he knows why he was called here. With all of the death threats, he needed someone that he could trust because there could be someone close to making them. Thomas says once he's elected, they'll get to work, but for tonight, he just wants to be a father. Bruce then runs over shouting, "Come on, we have to hurry or we're gonna miss the movie." Alfred tells Thomas to hang on. He shouldn't go out like this. Let him come along and be the bodyguard. But Thomas stops him and tells him that they go out every week as a family and that will not change. All he wants is to make sure that Bruce grows up to have a normal life. Alfred throws his arms out telling him that this is nowhere near normal. This mansion, butlers and cooks, being a Wayne is not normal. Life's ugly outside of this place. Thomas looks at Alfred and he says, "I know how ugly life can be, but everything we did in the desert, I'm never gonna forget that. But I have to take my leave. My family is waiting on me right now, Alfred." A short while later, down at the theater, Bruce shouts that they're going to sit in the first row, but just as they take their seats, the lights go out. One of the ushers steps in shining his light, telling them that he's sorry, but it looks like the power to the entire theater was cut. If everyone could make their way to the front exit, please. Bruce jumps up from his chair shouting, "Come on, there's another theater a few blocks away. If we hurry, we can make it." And then he runs for the back exit. As he runs into the alley, he bumps into a hooded man who tells him to watch where he's going. Bruce stops and he turns back, telling him that he doesn't have to do anything. His parents are the richest people in Gotham. The hooded man stands there for a moment and he says, "You're the Wayne kid." A few seconds later, Thomas and Martha come out looking for their son, and the hooded man grabs Bruce and he pulls out a gun. Thomas tells the man to wait, and the man shouts that he wants his wallet and jewelry now. But before Thomas can even reach for his wallet, the man lunges, grabbing Martha's necklace, and when Thomas tries to stop him, there were two shots. The robber turns and he runs off, and all Bruce can do is stare at the lifeless bodies of his parents. Later, back at the mansion, police begin putting their reports together as Alfred tells them that he knows that there were threats made. He wants a list of suspects and he wants to help. And one of the officers says that he knows about his background with the Royal Marines and the security firm that he worked for in Seoul. But this is an investigation the police will be handling. The woman next to the officer then says that there is something else that they need to talk about, and that's the fact that the Waynes have named him the child's legal guardian in case something was to ever happen. Alfred's stunned. He stares for a moment and he says, wait, I'm not a parent. There has to be someone else who can watch him. What happens if I say no? The woman says actually Thomas and Martha were the last of their respective families. And if he says no, Bruce will go into child services and then into foster care. Later, as the police leave, Alfred pulls up a chair to the table that Bruce is sitting at. And he says that he understands what's going on, but he has to eat. Bruce looks up and he stares and he asks, "Who the hell are you?" And Alfred sighs, telling him, "I'm your new butler." Back in the current times, Bruce walks into the house and Alfred asks, "Is this really my life now?" Bruce pulls back the mask, stating that others may have given up, but he won't. Over at the Gotham PD, Detective Jim Gordon sits at his desk when he is called into the captain's office. Jim, a man who understands what Gotham is really like, shuffles into the office asking what is it. The captain says that he would like to introduce him to his new partner, Harvey Bullock. Harvey smiles, stating that he's pretty sure that they all know who he is. Hosted Hollywood Detective all 5 seasons. Jim stares at Harvey and he tells him that he doesn't watch much TV, and Harvey tells him, that's fine, I'll get you a copy of it on Blu-ray. As the two walk off, Jim asks who in their right mind transfers to Gotham, and Harvey throws his arm around Jim, telling him that he needed a challenge. He needed to work on one particular case, the murder of the Waynes. Back with Bruce, he stares at a suit of armor displaying a bat signia. Alfred walks in asking, why a bat? All because of that day that we opened up the mausoleum and they scared you? Well, the people you're hunting don't get scared. Bruce looks back and he tells him, everyone gets scared, Alfred. And Alfred looks at him, I've taught you how to protect yourself, and even more, now it's time for me to leave. I didn't teach you how to fight so that you can go on some insane crusade. Bruce shouts, I'm not crazy. The mayor had both of my parents killed because my father would have taken the polls. Alfred angrily tells him that he bloody knows what happened. And Bruce then asks, what do you know about the man that I was chasing? Jacob Weaver. The man you were chasing tonight used to be a cop. He was one of the first ones in the scene at the night of the murder. He then quit the force and started to work for the mayor a week after. Jacob has something, the lighter that he gave his father for Christmas before he died. Alfred stands for a moment and then he takes his cane, hitting the broken grappling hook, telling him, fine, but we need guns. And Bruce quickly tells him, no guns. Alfred goes on telling him that these kind of people you're looking for are corrupt. Gadgets are not going to scare them or work. And Bruce looks off and says, maybe I'll find someone who can make them work. Later, at the Wayne Medical Group building, he finds someone who can help, Mr. Lucius Fox. Bruce tells Lucius that he understands that he is the lead designer on the neuroprosthetics processor, and he was hoping that he could get some help on something else. Bruce hands over the broken grappling hook, telling him that he wants to keep this between them. Lucius tells him that he works in the medical technology, and yes, he can fix this. Also, there aren't any mountains in Gotham for you to climb, Mr. Wayne. Why do you need a grappling hook? Bruce takes out his umbrella and he walks out, telling him, sure there are. The next day out on the streets, Jim and Harvey make their way to the security detail for the mayor when Harvey spots a man beating another man on the sidewalk. Harvey tells Jim to stop the car, but Jim tells him it's not their business. Besides, they're already late. As the light turns red, Harvey jumps out of the car and he runs to the larger man, telling him that he would like him to put his hands into the air. The man turns back swinging and Harvey ducks the hit and then lands a punch in the man's gut. Harvey calls to Jim, telling him to bring the cuffs over, and Jim runs over telling Harvey to let the man go. Harvey asks, what, is this guy an informant or something? And Jim turns to the man telling him, hey, I'm sorry, Axe, this guy's new. Axe fixes his jacket and says, yeah, well, you better teach the new guy quick before any accidents happen. That punk you just let go owed me some money, and now you owe me some money, Gordon. As Axe walks off, Harvey asks, what the hell was that? And Jim shouts for him to get back in the damn car. This place has rules we follow, and once you learn that, you'll head back to Los Angeles, so don't judge me. Later that night, Bruce sits in the back of his car, looking at the new and improved grappling hook, stating that he actually fixed it. Alfred says that he needs to be careful. Everyone is going to want a piece of Bruce Wayne since he hasn't been a public figure in a long time. As Alfred pulls up to the mayor's party, Oswald tells Bruce that it was a pleasure to meet him. Mayor Oswald Cobblepot at your service. Inside, Jim and Harvey keep watch while Harvey enjoys the other views of the party when Jim spots him. Harvey notices Jim looking off and he says, wow, Bruce Wayne is really here. Harvey puts on a smile stating, it's showtime, and he makes his way through the crowds to Bruce, telling him his name, and he says that he's working on his parents' case and would love to talk to him about it. Bruce looks at him and he says, you're the police officer from the TV. And Harvey's smile grows bigger. Yes, Hollywood Detectives, no crime is unsolvable. Bruce tells him, right, that show just got canceled, didn't it? And he walks off. As Bruce leaves, Harvey under his breath simply says, jerk. However, for Bruce, he isn't here to enjoy the party. He's here looking for Jacob Weaver, and he spots him leaving for the roof. Once on the roof, Jacob lights up his cigarette with Thomas's lighter, and that's when Batman quickly slams him into a wall, grabbing the lighter, asking, where did you get this? Before Jacob can answer, Batman is struck in the back of the head with a brick, and Jacob laughs, haha, I'm not the only one up here for a smoke. As the men surround Bruce, one radios in that they have some trouble on the roof. Some guy in a bat costume. Batman tries to fight off the attacks as Jim and the other officers make their way up there, and Bruce lunges, hitting the first person that he can, which is Jim Gordon. He scoops up the lighter, and the other officers begin to fire their guns, and one grazes Bruce's head. He tries to catch himself, but as he stumbles over the ledge, he lets go of the lighter in the process, and with no other choice than to test the untested grappling hook, he fires it. The anchor hits into the building, and then he swings himself, crashing through the party. Everyone turns to see what's going on, and then he lands right on top of one of the dinner tables. The officers run back in and yell for this Batman to freeze, and without even saying anything, he throws 2 smoke bombs down and makes a break for the kitchen. Outside, Alfred watches Batman jump through a window, and he runs over to help him into the car. As Bruce's vision is fading, he remembers back to when he was younger, and him and his mother walked by their old house. He looked up at the old rundown home and he asked, why is the dirt red? Is it blood? And she told him no, it's rust. He just needs to promise her something. Bad things happened in that place, and promise her that he will never go inside. He thought back to the stories of how Martha's mother killed her father and then jumped off the roof, killing herself. And he says that he promises. But then the name Batman rings out as Bruce wakes up in his bed to a news report about a lunatic who crashed the mayor's party. Not only is Bruce watching, but so is Oswald Cobblepot. And he asks Jacob, why would somebody want you? Jacob nervously says, I don't know, that guy's just crazy, who knows what he wanted? Oswald tells him, get out. And as he does, he tells another man, I have enough problems with the dents digging around. Call in the birthday boy to fix this. Back with Bruce, he gets up to grab something to eat when he notices the lighter that Jacob had taken sitting on the countertop. He looks at it and Alfred walks in telling him that that could have gone better. The whole thing was supposed to be done quietly. Now everyone knows that he's out there. Bruce holds up the lighter and he asks, how did he get this? And Alfred says that he dropped it in the alley, but he needs to stop this. He's not ready for this. Bruce looks at him and he says, yes, he is. And Alfred slaps him to the ground. Bruce gets up and he tells Alfred, don't do this. And Alfred eggs him on, asking, or what? Show me I'm wrong. Show me that you're not just some entitled brat who isn't even close to ready. Bruce tackles Alfred into a wall and Alfred elbows, hitting Bruce, telling him, you've never seen war. And then he cracks his cane across his face. Bruce grabs Alfred's arm and he throws him into the grandfather clock, and as he continues to attack him, Alfred dodges, telling him, emotional, sloppy, soft. He then continues to beat on Bruce, shouting, you can't do it. You aren't even willing to sink down to Gotham's level. But just then, Bruce kicks Alfred's prosthetic leg, breaking it at the knee. Alfred slams to the ground and Bruce gets up, getting ready to say he's sorry, but then he stops himself and he says, I will do everything that I have to. I will do it myself. He walks out of the room and Alfred laughs, telling him, bloody hell, maybe you are ready. Meanwhile, back with Jacob, he puts the key into the lock of his apartment and the door swings open on its own. Inside on the table is a cake that reads, happy birthday, Jacob, and a voice telling him, make a wish. Jacob turns around to see a large man standing in the shadows, going on, telling him, but you can't tell anyone though. And he pulls out a knife. Back at Gotham PD, Harvey makes his way down to the cold case room and he tells the workers that he needs to get some files on Thomas and Martha Wayne. The worker says, right, you're not even fully registered yet. Check back in another day. Harvey rubs his head, telling him, oh no, my partner James Gordon is going to yell at me again. The worker stares at him for a moment and then he slides out the sign-up sheet, telling him, just use Jim's name and get it over with. However, as the request is put in, another worker sees the files have been taken and he calls one of Oswald Cobblepot's assistants, telling him, yeah, someone's snooping around again. Someone named James Gordon. Later over at Jim's house, Gordon gets ready for dinner for him and Barbara when there's a knock at the door. He opens it up and Harvey lets himself in, telling him that he found out some stuff. Jacob Weaver was one of the first people on the scene of the Wayne's murders and now he's dead. Jim stares at him, telling him, just get the hell out already. And then the phone rings with Barbara's mother on the other side. He picks it up and on the other line, Axe tells him, whatever happens to your daughter is up to you. You might want to put those cold case files back where you found them. As Jim looks over, he sees the case files that Harvey is holding and he grabs him, shouting, you stupid bastard! You checked those out under my name? They have Barbara! Harvey asks, who? And Jim shouts, the real Gotham! The people who control this city! The same people who killed my wife! Jim then says, let's go! Look, I used to be like you. I took on anything and everything, and then my wife died by an accident. All I have left is Barbara and I can't lose her. Harvey looks at the bat that was knocked over and he picks it up, asking, do you know what corner Axe works on? We should go see if he likes baseball. Out on the streets, Axe calls up a couple of passing girls when he's suddenly cracked in the back of the head with a bat. He looks up and he sees Jim and he asks, what's this supposed to be? Good cop, bad cop? And Harvey smiles, telling him, come on, this is Gotham City. It's bad cop, bad cop. Over at Jacob's apartment, Bruce begins to go over the crime scene when he notices the red dust on the ground. He looks at it and he notices that it is rust, the same type of rust from Arkham. He heads over to the old asylum to find it still locked, and then he hears somebody call for help. Inside, Barbara is sitting in a children's room screaming for help, trying to wiggle out of her bindings. The door begins to creak open and Barbara tries again, falling out of her chair. The birthday boy walks in holding a cake, telling Barbara, make a wish. Shortly after Bruce makes his way in, Jim and Harvey arrive with their lead, Axe. And when they get inside, Jim quickly notices someone behind him and he sees Batman. He points his gun at him, shouting, where's my daughter? And Batman quickly smacks the gun out of his hands. He grabs him, telling him, I don't know anything about your daughter. And Jim fights back, telling him, I know my daughter's here. As they go back back and forth. There's a scream, "Stay away from me!" And everyone stops to listen. Back in the child's room, Barbara grabs a broken chair leg and swings it, stabbing into the birthday boy's leg, trying to get him away. Jim shouts, asking, "Where did that come from?" And Batman puts his ear to the wall. Jim asks, "What the hell are you?" And then Batman breaks through the brittle wall into the child's room. Birthday boy turns to him and swings his knife, telling him, "You weren't invited." After slamming Batman into the table, Jim runs in grabbing his daughter, and he turns back, shooting the birthday boy in the shoulder. However, with his large frame, he reaches out, grabbing Jim by the wrist, and he begins to crush it. He gets back up, jumping on Birthday Boy, and he shouts for everyone to run. As Birthday Boy tries to ram Batman into the wall, it gives way and the two fall to the lower level. Across the hallway, Harvey sees the scuffle and he shouts for Batman to get out of the way so that he can take a shot. Batman doesn't listen and he kicks the knife out of the Birthday Boy's hand, sticking it into the wall. He then tries punching the Birthday Boy, but because of his muscle, the hits are ineffective. Harvey then jumps at the Birthday Boy. However, he grabs Harvey and throws him into the floor, causing him to fall. As Harvey gets back up, he notices something and then he lights up his lighter and he stares at the horrible thing that is before him. Back upstairs, the struggles between Batman and the Birthday Boy go on. Batman uses his cape to strangle and knock the Birthday Boy out, and Batman makes his way down to help Harvey out of the hole. As the two get up, Harvey winces and says that there were so many bodies. "What did I just see down there?" Batman looks down and he tells him, "Evil. Real evil." Later, over at Oswald's office, one of his men shouts that they have a problem, but doesn't say anything further. Oswald shouts for him to answer him. "Tell him what's going on." And the man is thrown into Oswald's office. He stares at Batman, asking, "Who are you supposed to be?" And Batman grits his teeth, telling him, "I am vengeance." Oswald starts to laugh. "Isn't that a bit dramatic?" And Batman responds by punching him in the face. He then grabs him, telling him, "You've spent years getting fat and rich off of the people of Gotham. Things should have been different." And then he tosses Oswald over his desk. He grabs his umbrella, telling Batman to stay back, and Batman asks, "And what are you gonna do with that?" Then Batman feels a sharp pain, and Oswald takes the needle tip and stabs it into him. As he falls to his knees, he then asks, "Did you come here to kill me? You shouldn't have made so much noise, so who are you underneath that mask?" Batman's mask is pulled back and he shouts, "Bruce Wayne?" Through the blood dripping from Bruce's lips, he says, "You had my parents killed. You took them from me." Oswald grips his umbrella, telling him, "It all makes sense now. Somehow you found out that Jacob cut the power to the theater, but instead of going up front, they went out back." He then stabs back down to Bruce's shoulder, telling him, "I worked hard to make that plan work, and then someone else came by and shot them for me." He then holds the tip of the umbrella to Bruce's neck, telling him, "There are two types of people in this city, predators and prey." And just before the final blow can be delivered, a voice then says, "There's also a third, survivors." In the doorway, Alfred stands holding a shotgun, and Oswald tells him, "You move, I'll shoot." So Alfred pulls the trigger. The force of the shotgun knocks Oswald out the window and he lands in the street. Later, the news reports that Mayor Oswald Cobblepot's death comes as no surprise with his illegal and corrupt activities. Ray Salinger, better known as the Birthday Boy serial killer, has been arrested, and people believe that the man known as Batman is behind all of this. Lucius watches on the news while he finishes his work on some new batarangs, and the TV goes on stating, "Jessica Dent has just been sworn in as the city's new mayor." Over at the station, the cops watch when suddenly Axe is thrown into the room in handcuffs. The cops look at Axe's beaten body and they ask what happened, and Jim says, "He walked in front of my car." Another officer says that they can't arrest him, and Jim asks, "Why not? Who else can't we arrest? Who else is gonna let the city be owned by this criminal scum?" He turns and he storms out, telling them, "I won't. Not anymore. And someone wash out my trunk." Out on the streets, Harvey shuffles through, still having images of all of the bodies that he witnessed, wrecking his mind. He walks into a store and the man behind the counter asks, "What can he get him?" He stares up at a giant wall of liquor and he says, "Whatever's the strongest." Back at the Wayne mansion, Bruce looks up at a portrait of his parents, and Alfred says that it was just the wrong alley at the wrong time. There is no conspiracy. So it's time to put the costume away. Stop this. Bruce closes his eyes and he tells him, "I can't. I can never stop. Now I will always be alone." Alfred places his hand on Bruce's shoulder and then he hugs him, telling him, "You've never been alone." And with that, Bruce set out to stop the crimes of Gotham City, always remembering what Alfred said, that he doesn't need to be a better Batman, he needs to build a legend. Elsewhere though, a man looks at the newspaper clippings asking, "Who is Batman?" He scratches his head, stating, "Yes, what a riddle this is." It was finally the end of the day for the 9 to 5 working class in Gotham City. It was time to go home. As a group of people get into the elevator to head up to their apartments, they notice the elevator has not stopped on any of the requested floors. The elevator continues to raise all the way up to the penthouse, and then it stops. One of the men tries to pry open the door, and he says that they are going to have to hit the help button. However, a voice on the intercom tells him that there's no need. The man spins back, stating that there's something wrong with the elevator, and the voice tells him he knows. and one of two things is going to happen, so listen carefully. There was a man who lived on the 13th floor of this building, but every morning he would press the ground floor to go to work. When he got home, he would press the 12th floor, get out, and walk the rest of the way. Why? The man yells at the intercom stating, "Quit goofing around! Open the damn doors and let us out!" And the voice says, "If you guess correctly, the doors will open. Answer incorrectly, and you'll fall 44 floors." Everyone inside begins to panic, and while some try to pry open the doors, the voice says, "Not even a guess?" And one of the women asks, "Was the elevator broken?" And the voice says, "What kind of riddle would that be?" The answer is that he wasn't tall enough to hit the 13th button, and just then an explosion goes off, destroying the elevator cables, and the elevator goes crashing back down to the ground floor. Gotham used to be a place where people kept their mouths shut. The cops looked the other way. The city belongs to the criminals. That was until he showed up. Because rumor has it that if you were to say Batman's name out loud, he would show up. People thought it was something like a horror movie, except the Batman is real. And Bruce punches into a thug with Alfred radioing in that there are still more on the roof. More men appear, reaching for their guns, and as soon as the triggers are pulled, Batman quickly throws out his cape to hide behind it. The bullets pass through the fabric, and when the time is right, he strikes. One by one, the men fall, but during the scuffle, one of the men is kicked back, tripping over the roof's edge. As he begins to fall, he's yanked back up, and he's knocked out, and Alfred asks, "What are you doing? You could have let him fall. That would have been one less drug pusher in Gotham." And Batman tells him, "No one dies." He runs to try and catch up with the men who ran, and he looks down into the street and he sees them speeding away. He hops down, jumping into his car to chase after them, but as he steps on the gas pedal, he loses control and bounces into a fire hydrant and then into a van. Alfred shouts asking if he's alright, and he pulls down the mask stating, "Gonna need a better car." Later at the local bar, Harvey Bullock, the Hollywood detective, sits drinking, still trying to process everything that he's been through with the recent birthday boy killer. He slams his shot glass down and he begins to reach for the bottle when a hand grabs his wrist, and Jim Gordon tells him, "That's enough." Harvey pulls his arm back, telling him, "I'll tell you when I've had enough," and he starts to pour another shot. Before Harvey can drink, Jim pushes his hand down, telling him, "It's time to go home." And Harvey snaps back, telling him, "Not until I take care of this." Jim asks him, "What? The bottle?" And Harvey tells him, "No, him." And he points at the man behind him. Harvey says, "That guy at the pool table is Damon Druce. Druce is one of Cobblepot's enforcers. Broke a lot of bones." And Jim says, "Yeah, I made a deal with Dent. We can't touch him or get involved now." Harvey grinds his teeth, telling him, "Last night, Druce beat up his girlfriend when she tried to leave him. He even hit her kid too. And when she called it in, the captain told him, hands off. No one is going to do anything to help that woman and her kid. The child is only 12, Jim. But this son of a bitch gets a pass? No. No way. It ain't right." Harvey gets up from his stool and he yells to Damon, asking, "You like beating up on women and kids? How about you try that on me?" As he finishes, Damon punches him in the face, telling him, "You're gonna sound pretty funny with a broken nose." Before Damon can hit him again, Jim charges in, punching him back, and soon a full bar fight breaks out. Once that fight is over, Jim tightens the cuffs on the men and tells Harvey, "Next time you're walking away. It's time for you to go home. Now." Harvey yells, telling him, "I'm staying right here. When I'm off duty, I'm off duty. What I do with my nights doesn't concern you." Jim asks, "Nights?" And then he grabs Harvey, throwing him outside, and the glaring sun beats down on Harvey. Jim looks at him, telling him, "It's 10 in the goddamn morning. You've been on duty for 3 hours." While Jim starts to help Harvey up, they get a call from dispatch telling them that the captain just called. There are bodies over at Gotham Towers, and they're going to need to get over there. Over at Wayne Manor, there's a ring on the door, and Alfred opens it, stating, "Blimey, if it isn't the mayor himself." Alfred closes the door and he looks back at Bruce, who's still getting changed from his night out on patrol, and he says, "We've got a visitor." While Bruce gets fully dressed, Alfred lets Jessica Dent in. But before Bruce even has a chance to understand what's going on, she tells him that it's nice to see him again. The two walk inside, and she goes on stating that they haven't seen each other since, what, graduation? And Bruce corrects her, stating, "Actually, it was your father's retirement party." She asks him if he was there, and Bruce says, "Briefly, your brother saw me out before I could even say hi. Harvey never really did like me, and you together." Bruce then asks, why is it the DA's office is cutting deals with every criminal that comes in? Jessica tells him that the criminals destroying Gotham aren't only on the streets, they're also looking down on the city from above, which is why she's here. And what she's going to tell him could very well get her and her brother killed. They have evidence that Cobblepot's criminal operations have been taken over by a group of 5 city officials. Cobblepot's empire is still active because of them. That is why there are deals being made, and we need to find out who those people are. But there are only 2 people that I can trust right now, and that's my brother and you. Bruce asks, why? We haven't spoken in years. And Jessica tells him, because of our history, you're renowned for your self-removal from the rest of Gotham. You need to come out to the rest of the world. Gotham needs a symbol of hope. Bruce waits for a moment and then he asks, isn't that what the Batman's for? To be a symbol of hope? And Jessica turns away stating, most people are afraid of him. What they need is someone who will inspire the city, not scare them. And I would like you to get out of here, roll up your sleeves, and do what your mother and father did. Help my fight in turning Gotham into the city that your parents wanted it to be. If you really want to honor their memory, please help. Bruce doesn't answer, and when Jessica grabs his hand, he says, no, I can't put myself out there like that. If you need money, I can write a check, whatever the price is. Jessica says that it's not money that's going to save Gotham, it's people. His parents were going to save Gotham, and now someone else has to do it. As Jessica leaves Bruce in the courtyard, Alfred waits on the inside, worried about him. As Bruce comes in, Alfred steps down, telling him, you're a stronger bloke than me. Girl asks for help and you turn her away. Back with Jim, he arrives in the scene of where the elevator crashed and he notices that only one member of the forensics team is there processing the scene. When Jim asks where everyone else is, the CSI tells him it's because they're waist deep in crap. Literally, they're working in sewers because of that creature that they call Killer Croc. Some homeless guy was trying to find a place to sleep down in the pipes and nearly got his entrails eaten. Real nasty stuff. Just then the CSI gets up stating, I gotta move the van, double parked, I'll be back in a few. As the man leaves, Batman steps out of the shadows and Jim tells him, be careful, you're already stepping on evidence. Batman pulls his boot back from the piece of paper and he says, I thought this was just an accident. And Jim asks, you're not a very good detective, are you? Your job is just beating up people. How's that going to solve anything? Batman asks him, how's Barbara? And Jim tells him, far away from Gotham, studying computer science. And now that I've said it, I'm going to assume you want a favor for helping her. Batman tells him, I have some information. Word is that there are 5 people who have taken over Cobblepot's criminal network. They have yet to be identified, but they work for the city. What I need is someone to help me find out exactly who those people are. Jim bends down, grabbing a black light, telling him, that is one hell of a question. And as the black light turns on, it reveals a giant question mark on one of the elevator doors. Jim tells him, and this was not an accident. Batman then begins to ask, could you look into the 5 officials? And Jim says that he would like to help, but he's gonna need more to go on. There isn't a shortage of corrupt officials in this city. Batman begins to leave through the window and he tells Jim, I'll see what else I can find out, but thanks. A little while later, after returning to the station to report on the question mark, 2 officers see Jim and tell him that the captain wants to see both him and Harvey. As the 2 walk into the captain's office, Harvey then shouts, asking, are these the 2 idiots that you're waiting for? Harvey, still intoxicated, quietly says, crap. The captain says that this is District Attorney Harvey Dent, and Dent walks over to him shouting, these 2 knowingly assaulted an informant this morning. There was a direct order to stay the hell away from Damon Druce. And Bullock leans back telling him, I don't recall that conversation. Dent then yells, and he smells like he wouldn't recall much of it anyway. The captain asks if there's something he would like to share, and after a few moments of silence, Bullock steps forward stating that he does have something to say. But Jim cuts him off telling him that he'll handle this. They were keeping tabs on Druce when a fight broke out over a pool game. They spilled their drinks all over them, but before they could change, they had to hit the towers. The captain says that it sounds like an unfortunate case of an unavoidable circumstance, Mr. District Attorney. Dent leans in telling him, if either of them so much as glance at another one of my informants, I will have their badges. I know a bad cop when I see 1 or 2. But while the 2 detectives handle their business at the PD somewhere else, Bruce is sitting in an elevator with Alfred fixing his tie. Alfred says that he needs to stop fidgeting, and Bruce lets go, straightening his suit, telling him that this isn't a social call. I'm only here for more information on these officials. Then we can go to Detective Gordon. Alfred cuts him off, telling him enough with him. I wouldn't trust any cop in Gotham. Keep this up and one day, they'll come after you too. And when that happens, just like now, I'm not going down without a fight, so be careful getting Jessica too involved. The elevator door dings and Bruce heads inside to Jessica's office and immediately tells her that he has some questions for her. Does she have any more leads pointing towards who these 5 people are? Because if he's going to be putting the Wayne Enterprises name out there, he needs to know that his men are not involved. She says that there is no one at Wayne Enterprises, and Bruce says, how can she be so sure? At that moment, she calls into the next room, telling Harvey Dent to come in. Dent steps through the door and the 2 men greet each other, and Bruce remembers back a long time ago when he told him to stay away from Jessica. Dent tells him that Jessica and himself are outing everything on the line talking to him. She trusts him, but that means that he's going to have to as well, so look at this. He holds out a tablet showing a map, and Bruce asks, what is this? Harvey explains that the reason that he has so many criminals talking is that he's been connecting the dots. Every time that he makes a deal, the web fills out, showing 5 groups around the city. The police station, the housing commission, the public works, the city council, and the state court. People they see every day. This is bad. Just then, the secretary runs into the office stating that there's been an explosion at the Museum of Art. Everyone in the city rushes to the museum, and as Jim looks up at the burning building, he sees a flaming question mark. He runs over to the captain stating that he knows who did this. That question mark, it was the one at the towers. There was a destroyed short-range radio that the killer was using. The captain says that he can explain this later. Right now, go take a team and fan out. Jessica looks around asking, where did Bruce go? And Alfred tells her that Bruce said he had to leave. Harvey looks back at Jessica and says, I know you want to believe in Bruce, but you can't count on him. He runs to the first sign of trouble. Alfred radios to Bruce asking where he's at, and Bruce tells him, up on the rooftop, suited up. Jim was right, the killer is close by. He begins to scan the rooftops looking for something, and then he spots him. The man looks towards Batman and he begins to run. So Batman radios that he's going after him. He jumps onto the roof when the man is running and he throws a batarang, slightly missing and hitting the door frame. The man then makes his way to the stairs, but as Batman jumps down to the stairway, he sees a small radio. He grabs it and begins to inspect it, and then through the shadows of the window, he sees something looming over him, and then he's hit with a shovel. He's knocked out the window and down onto the lower balcony, where he passes out from the fall. A short while later, Bruce opened up his eyes to find himself in a bed and his mask still on and his wounds have been tended to. He looks around panicking, asking, what happened? And the woman steps into the room telling him that he fell onto her balcony and she can't believe, but it's really the Batman. Bruce asks who she is and the woman tells him to keep it down. She has a 6-year-old son sleeping in the next room. He begins to lean up and the woman says that she figured that he wouldn't have wanted her to call 911. So she did what she could. Batman gets up getting dressed and he takes the batarang that the woman was looking at, telling her that he's sorry for crashing in, but here's some money for the smashed pots. He'll send flowers later. Back over at Jessica's office, Harvey says that he knew that he couldn't trust Bruce. He's got Arkham blood in his veins. He was creepy when they were kids and he's creepy now. As Jessica starts to defend Bruce, there's a knock at the door and Jessica's secretary comes in with a box with a question mark on it, stating that it has just been dropped off. Later that night, as the rain begins to pick up, there's a ring at the door of Wayne Manor. The bell is rung several times and Alfred walks over telling whoever it is to hold on. He's coming. As he opens up the door, Jessica is standing there asking if Bruce is home. She needs to talk to him, it's very important. Meanwhile, down in the sewers, he's searching for the tunnels as this was the last location where he saw the man that was running before. A creature then grabs onto him and throws him against a wall and begins to move in for strikes. Using his cape, Batman shifts behind the creature and starts to smother the creature until it manages to bite through the cape. With a quick punch back, the creature punches into Batman, and Batman continues to try and fight it. The creature's thick scales protect it from any of his normal punches. And as he's knocked down once more, he pulls out a taser, firing the throngs into the creature's cheek and electrocuting him. As Batman then rushes in to kick him, the creature grabs him by the neck, shouting, "Stop and leave me alone!" The creature lets go and says, "Please, whoever you are, just leave me alone." Batman looks at the creature and tells him that he was trying to eat him, and the creature says that he doesn't eat people. He's a person. Gotham Knights come down here to either shoot or stab me. Just go away. Batman grabs the glow stick to get a better look, and he says that he's not down here looking for him. There was another person, but what is your name? The creature tells him that he is Waylon Jones, and he has a skin condition that, well, makes him look like this, like a croc. His mother gave him to a doctor to be looked after, and Dr. Haley filed his teeth to make him look more like a reptile boy and sell him off. So please, stop staring. This is the only place that I can hide from people who want to put me in a circus. Batman then asks if he's been living here as he's seen a man that's come by. Wayland says that there was a man that he has seen in a green coat, and he can show him where he's been, but there's one question he has to ask. He looks at Batman's suit and he asks, "What the hell are you wearing?" As Wayland guides Batman through the tunnels, Batman explains what he's been doing, and he offers Wayland the help of the doctors on the surface. Wayland tells him no, he would much rather just stay down here. There's no point in going back up. Happy hunting, Batman. As Batman walks up to the door that Wayland led him to, he opens up his belt, pulling out a set of tools to pick the lock. He begins to try and open it, and after a few moments of not succeeding, he tosses the picks and says, "Screw this." With one mighty kick, he throws the door open, and he sees a wall of newspaper clippings, all featuring him. Across the desk are several monitors, all with question marks on the wallpapers. Batman reaches down to access the computer and a voice asks, "Is that you, Batman?" Batman looks up from the monitor requesting a password and he asks, "Who are you?" The voice says, "That's a difficult question, isn't it? Who I am is a matter of perspective. To one, I could be a friend. To the other, an enemy. However, who I am is an unanswerable question, so we should just move along." Batman tells him, "Don't tell me who you are. Just tell me why you're doing this." The voice says, "That is a good question. There could be many answers as to why I'm doing this. Could be good, could be bad. But it all leads to one specific question. Was it a wasted life or meaningful? Is there anything after death? That is the ultimate riddle. Perhaps you should call me the Riddler." Batman glances around and he asks, "You're still here, aren't you?" However, just as it's asked, the explosion goes off, throwing Batman against a wall. He gets up looking at the radio on the ground, and the Riddler tells him, "That should have been the first question you asked." As Batman reaches down to grab the radio, the Riddler tells him, "How about you play this time?" Currently, there's an explosive rigged to a first-class car of the Gotham L train with enough power to kill everyone on board. If my question isn't answered correctly, the explosion will go off. Now take the radio and follow my directions. Run, Batman, run! Batman runs out of the room and down into the sewers into the subway tunnels. But just before falling onto the tracks, he stops. Down the tunnel, the subway makes its way, and the Riddler tells him, "Wait for it. Wait for it. Jump!" Batman leaps onto the passing train, tumbling onto the roof, barely grabbing onto the side, and the Riddler begins with this question. "I am a part of the bat that's not in the sky. I can swim in a lake in the moonlight, and yet I am dry. What am I?" The train shifts, throwing Batman off his balance, and he retains his posture. And he says, "I know what that is. A shadow." In another location close by, the Riddler frowns, and Batman asks, "Did you hear me?" Then the explosions are set off, and Batman is thrown from the roof down onto the nearby tracks. Before he has a chance to get up, the rest of the train explodes, and all Batman can do is watch. Later, as medical and police arrive, Jim starts to make his way down when Batman calls out to him. Jim looks down an alley and he steps out, telling him, "This isn't a game to him. It never was. He called himself the Riddler, and even with the correct answer, he blew it up. There were families on that train, kids. He murdered kids." Jim follows Batman back into the shadows, and he pulls out a small stack of papers, stating that the safe house has been rigged to explode. Everything was burning except for these. Jim looks through them, and Batman says they had 4 words on them: Crane, Drake, Pierce, Black. I would assume that those are names. What if these mass killings aren't what they look like? 5 people took control of Cobblepot's empire. Jim asks, what is he trying to say? And Batman says the Riddler didn't care that I answered the question. These acts don't seem random. Perhaps the Riddler is all an act to cover up the real murders. He's killing many to hide one. So cross-reference the list of victims with the names on that map. I bet these names are going to match. Batman turns to leave, and he tosses Jim a small device, telling him, "When you find out, call me on that." Jim looks at it, asking, "What is it? A cell phone with 1 button?" And Batman tells him, "It's a bat signal." Once he grapples out of there, Jim looks closer at the device, and he says, "Christ, he actually put a bat on it." Back in Wayne Manor, Jessica begins pulling out the contents of a box, stating that she can't trust anyone right now. That's why she wanted to show Bruce this. As Alfred takes the note, he reads, "I'll stop asking questions if you arrest him." And Alfred asks, "Who?" Jessica pulls out a box and pulls out a small Batman doll. And Alfred asks, "Why are you coming here with this?" Just then, Jessica's phone rings from her brother, and she picks it up and tells him to slow down. After a few moments, she says, "Oh God, there was another explosion. Tell Bruce I'll be back." As she runs out, Bruce weakly calls out to Alfred, pushing the false bookcase. After Alfred is done patching him up, he gets up and feels his phone vibrate. When he answers it, Jim tells him, "I've matched the names. There's something else though. I have a way to find the Riddler." Later, back in Jessica's office, the Batman doll is thrown onto the table, and Bruce then asks, "How long have you known?" She sighs, stating since the moment that he said that he thought the bat was a symbol of hope for the city. Only he would think that. He begins to state that he made a vow to his parents' grave to take down the killer, and Jessica says that she thought he needed a focus on his life. But she never would have thought that, does the person behind these attacks know who you are? Is that why they're trying to force me to arrest the Batman? Bruce tells her no. The Riddler is all about distractions. I've been working with Detective James Gordon. He's a man you can trust. The two then begin to search through the records of the people who died in the accidents, and they notice one thing between the 3 of them. Each had an offshore account that had been drained the day before their death, all to a company named Answers Inc., and its owner, Bruce Wayne. At that same moment, there's a knock on the door at Wayne Manor, and Jim holds up papers, telling Alfred that he has a warrant to search the premises. Jim lets him in, and Alfred asks, "So you're Gordon?" And he hits him with a cane. After a bit of fighting, Alfred is tased, but back at the office, Bruce feels his hair grabbed from behind. He's spun around and sucker punched, and Harvey tells him, "You stay the hell away from my sister." Later at the Gotham PD, Alfred sits in a cell, and Bruce asks what happened to him. Alfred looks over at his black eye, and he asks, "What the hell happened to you?" Bruce tells him that he was at Jessica's office going over the case, and well, he was still out because he didn't hit Harvey back. Alfred says Gordon came by the manor, must have figured it all out. "I knew he couldn't have been trusted, Bruce." Bruce stops him, telling him it's not because of Batman, it's because the Riddler left a trail from the accounts of the victims that led back to Bruce Wayne. Alfred then says the case with the new suit from Lucius came, but the police have it here. Just then Harvey begins charging towards Bruce Wayne, yelling, "I still got some questions for you." But before he could take another step, the lights go out, and suddenly a voice calls over the radio, and the Riddler says, "That's all thanks to you. Allow me to welcome all of the important people here and ask a riddle. If you answer it correctly, the power comes back on, and I go back to my game of solitaire. But if you get it wrong, the entire building will turn to rubble, with you in it. But before I ask my question, there's something else I'd like to do." As a clank that rings out, and Alfred looks at the cell doors swing open. All of the locked up criminals push open their cell doors, and Maroni shouts, "He wants Harvey Dent." As a fight breaks out between the cops and the criminals, Alfred joins in to help, and one of the criminals grabs a knocked out officer's gun. He points it at Alfred, and then there's a sudden loud thud, and Bruce pushes through wielding a fire extinguisher. While the fighting goes on, the Riddler asks, "There's a criminal in a cell wanting to leave. There are no windows or cracks in the walls. He has no tools, and the door to his cell is 5 inches thick. How did he escape?" Harvey pulls Jessica to get out of there, and she pulls back, telling him that she can't. Bruce and Alfred are inside. Harvey then pulls harder towards the door, telling her that they will help once she's safe. And that's when he feels a slight prick and sees blood coming out of his stomach. A criminal laughs as he holds up a bloody knife. "I'm cutting a deal, Dent!" Literally. Bruce punches a man, shouting, "The door wasn't locked!" "But that doesn't matter. You're going to blow up this place anyway." One of the men then shouts, "Maroni has Dent." As everyone turns, they see Maroni holding Harvey up with one hand, holding a Molotov in the other. And as Harvey looks over at Jessica, Maroni slams the bottle against Harvey's face, burning the right side of his head. Before Jessica can reach out, Bruce runs over, covering Harvey, smothering the fire. Jessica yells to Harvey, and as she holds his head up, he whispers, "Don't let me die." Jessica holds Harvey's face closer, pressing her face against the burned flesh. Bruce then grabs Jessica, telling her that they need to go, and she turns back, shouting that her brother is dead before passing out. Bruce takes Jessica, jumping out the window while the Riddler continues his countdown, and that's when Bruce sees 2 laundry trucks in the parking lot. As an officer comes over to Jessica, Bruce runs over to the truck, swinging open the back door, and the Riddler says, "Oh, you got me." Almost. Bruce looks and sees the van is packed with explosives, and then the Riddler backs up into the second van. He begins to laugh. "Ha ha ha! This has been fun, but soon every person who knows about me will be dead." The Riddler speeds off, with Bruce jumping into the van and hot-wiring it, but just before the Riddler could push the button, Bruce radios to him. He says that he has a riddle. There are 2 cars that can leave the GCPD 5 seconds apart, traveling 60 miles an hour. The one in front is a trigger to the bomb in the second. The cars are within a half a block of each other. What happens to both cars when the trigger is flipped? Riddler looks in the rear view to see Bruce behind him. He steps on the gas, saying, "Getting ahead by 1 city block is the answer." The 2 race through the city streets, but eventually Bruce slams into the side of the Riddler's van. The Riddler's van flips into the subway below, and Bruce jumps down, with the Riddler jumping from the van, firing his guns. He shouts, asking, "Who are you?" And Bruce punches him, telling him, "You'll never know. It's over." He grabs the switch, telling him, "No, let us answer the ultimate riddle together. Is there anything after death?" Before he presses down, though, Waylon appears, slashing at the Riddler's back. The Riddler falls to his knees, and he spins back, shooting Waylon, shouting, "We'll all die now." Batman throws a batarang into Riddler's wrist, freeing the switch, and then he runs in, punching him. And later, as the police arrive, Bruce goes to the hospital to see Jessica. As he sits there, he hears her begin to say something. Excited, he gets up from his chair, and she says, "Wayne, stay the hell away from my sister." Bruce pauses, and then Jessica looks over, asking Bruce, where is her brother? She reaches out, and Bruce grabs her hand, telling her that he's sorry, but before she could hear him, she passes back out. Over at the station, Jim steps out of the commissioner's office, and Harvey Bullock asks, "What's the word? Did he get a gold star?" Jim takes off his glasses, stating that he's been promoted to captain. And back at the hospital, Bruce leaves to allow Jessica to rest, and then gets a call from Alfred. Alfred asks, what is he supposed to do with this? What does this thing eat? Waylon, bandaged up from the gunshot wound, says that he eats food, old man. Bruce walks out, stating that the city has a new chance, and so do they. And Alfred then says that he also did the thing that he asked. He sent flowers to that apartment, and it turns out that the owner was out of town when he crashed in, and he's a man. So don't let yourself thinking that Gotham's cured of anything just yet. He may have worked out who he was, but in Gotham, you never know who anyone else really is. Off in another apartment, the woman who treated Bruce plays with a cat on her bed while holding a batarang.
And that was the full story of the first 2 volumes of Batman, Earth 1 by Geoff Johns and Gary Frank. A story we covered on the main channel many years ago. A great alternate take on the greatest detective, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to help out the channel. I'm Dan with Comicstorian, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.